Hi, good evening. Almost 35 years ago, the very young National Book Critics Circle presented its first ever fiction award to E.L. Doctorow for Ragtime, the landmark novel of the jazz age in the early years of the last century. Were that novel to be published today, we would be giving it our fiction award again, though the 24 members of the NBCC has changed several times since the novel was published in 1975. Such is the power, the beauty of Mr. Doctorow's fiction. Ragtime, his fourth novel, also won the American Academy of Arts and Letters Award. The film version was nominated for 8 Academy Awards. It was turned into a musical in 1989 that was nominated for 12 Tony Awards. And the Modern Library's editorial board named it to its list of 100 best novels of the 20th century. If Doctorow had never written anything else, he would still remain among America's literary giants on the strength of that one book. But he did write novels, volumes of essays, collection of stories, all of which, thankfully, only added to his position as one of the most important and admired American writers of the second half of the last century. Doctorow is unsurpassed in his ability to capture the soul of America at pivotal moments in its history. His evocative novels recreate mainly 19th and 20th century American life with imagination and heart. He deftly marries historical characters with fictional ones. His prose is beautiful, and his skillful narration conveys the smell and feel of bygone days. Its history we all know, and we're familiar with it, and yet, somehow in his hands, it all becomes fresh. Not bad for a writer who started out trying to write a parody of the American Western and ended up publishing a serious first novel, Welcome to Hard Times, in 1960. Critics have also afterwards praised his third novel, The Book of Daniel, which fictionalized the story of the Rosenbergs who were executed as spies during the Cold War. Doctorow has won numerous awards for his works, among them the PEN/Faulkner Award and the National Book Award, and others. He won the NBCC's Fiction Award yet again in 1989 for Billy Bathgate, which also won the PEN/Faulkner and a medal from the American Academy of Arts and Letters for the best novel of the previous 5 years. In 2005, he was the NBCC's Fiction Award winner once more, this time for The March, which evoked the Civil War. So it's an honor to have Mr. Doctorow here this evening. Please welcome this 3-time winner of the NBCC's Fiction Award, a writer whom Joyce Carol Oates has called our great chronicler of American mythology.
That's very nice. In 1976, I was in Jerusalem at a retreat for guest foreign writers and artists when I received a call from New York, and it was my editor at Random House, Jim Silberman. And he informed me that Ragtime, my novel, had won some kind of award. He said that I had to come back to New York to receive it. How important is this? I said. I've only just settled in here. Oh, it's very important. He said, it's the first fiction award of the National Book Critics Circle, and I think you better get on a plane. And so I did. As I recall, the ceremony was held somewhere in Rockefeller Center. I'm not sure of that. And a lot of people were there. It was very festive. And John Leonard may have been the presenter. Perhaps someone could correct me on that. But I remember some sort of banner and flashbulbs going off and John's big smile. And Jim Silberman was right. The award was important. It was an important certification for me and very moving. And it has continued to be important in the 35 years since. I should admit to the great gratification I felt in being, again, a winner of the NBCC award for Billy Bathgate, and then in 2005 for The March. And I remember saying at that first occasion that I wondered if such honors were good for literary culture as a whole. But then I admitted that it was also true that when I'm offered an award, I tend to accept it. So our literary republic is quite different from what it was even as recently in 2005. And if the historical relations of authors and critics has often resembled opposing camps, as how could it not when the imponderables of literature are weighed and judged? What the present situation brings out is that we are, after all, one literary community and that we're all in this mess together. The dire state of the newspaper business, the dying of the freestanding newspaper book review sections, the job losses, the internet's Katrina-like effect on all print culture. Cyberspace is a platform for what is insistently visual or archly monosyllabic, and the ethics and economics of linkage, all of this seemingly complicit with what may be a national epidemic of attention deficit disorder, makes us, well, let me describe us iconically. Here is a single person sitting somewhere writing a book in silence, and here is another person sitting somewhere and reading that book in silence. And what is written in silence and read and written about in silence, that's us. And how lovely it all seems now, and how fine, how civilized, and how retro. Because the truth about books is that they are more intensely interactive in the reading than anything involving the pushing of buttons to see images flashing on a screen. So the question is this: is there a place in the future for the likes of us? Well, there are resources, some indication of a rising universe of blogs that will eventually conglomerate and take on a familiar look. The final form of the electro-digital world is still to come. Its marketplace disciplines are still to be determined. But finally, we are talking about adversity, something which I personally have always found enabling. And I recall the New York newspaper strike in the early 60s and how it aroused Jason Epstein, Elizabeth Hardwick, and some others to found the New York Review of Books. Perhaps with an angel or two writing a check for the recession will recede, I'm told, there could come from your hands a national review of books, a forum for critics and reviewers all over the country, in print, on the newsstands, as inserts in the very papers that abandon their own efforts, and by subscription and in the bookstores and online. And surely book publishers would show their appreciation. On the other hand, maybe not. I am not too practical when it comes to business ideas. In the early 90s, I and some friends started a company that would create a television channel devoted exclusively to books and authors. BookNet, we called it. And we came up with a wealth of programming ideas, author interviews and programs for specific genres, and author readings, and adults reading to children, and courses in literacy, and critic anchors, and movies based on books, and an ongoing book-selling platform, of course. We were turned away by the cable giants, but what was more surprising, by the publishing houses as well. So this chastened author went back to what he knew, consoling himself with tales of business disasters of his predecessors, like the one about Jack London, who looked in on the Napa Valley in California and was inspired to found the Jack London Grape Juice Company in the Napa Valley. Grape juice. Or Mark Twain, who went broke investing in the Page typesetting machine, a beautiful work of sculpture, but unfortunately reluctant to typesetting. You can see it now sitting gloriously in the basement of the Twain House in Hartford. But I have one sound idea, which I offer you. Think up another award for criticism to be directed at yourselves and name it after John Leonard. And so, NBCC, I congratulate you. In a country of failing institutions, your 35 years of existence are exemplary. Thank you.